Welcome back to Green Connections. I'm Joan Michelson. Is the building you work in smart? Building construction is being reinvented by energy efficiency and sustainability practices and information systems. At Verge, I spoke with construction executive Whitney Dorne about the realities of building smart, green, energy-efficient buildings. Let's hear from Whitney Dorne.
I'm here at the Verge San Francisco 2013 conference with Whitney Dorne of DPR Construction. She's project executive there, which means she keeps everybody in line, I think. Whitney, I'm really interested in this nexus of sustainability in buildings because, as we've learned here at the conference, innovation is happening at the speed of light. And yet buildings are built to last for a long time, right? And so how do you counsel your clients or the construction companies to make a flexible building, if that isn't an oxymoron, so that it can respond to the technological changes?
It's a tough balance, actually, because if you want to design and construct a very flexible building, a lot of times that means more cost. Maybe you're oversizing things, or you're creating situations where you have the ability to pull more cable in or provide more electricity. All those things are sort of like in the opposite direction of sustainability. So in the construction industry, we use a term called good bones. A building has good bones, meaning that the footprint, the layout of the building, the structure of the building is good, and it provides a way for them to change the use of the building easily over time, because you're right, typically buildings last a long time, but the actual use in the building changes. And so you have to have buildings that have the right kind of footprint to allow for a lot of natural daylight, to allow for services through the building, so that as time changes, those services can be changed out.
Well, what I'm talking about is intelligent buildings, is reducing, improving energy efficiency, data collection, going to green insulation and other kinds of, like all the LEED certified stuff, right? But how do you build a building that can have a flexible HVAC system, or have a flexible to adapt to changes that you don't even know what they're going to be yet?
Yeah, it can be very challenging. So I think what's most important is designing toward a goal for the building, and building toward a goal for the building that is going to allow for new equipment to be installed, but still that the infrastructure that's there will work for a lot of different situations. I think a lot of it too has to come, what kind of use is it going to be in now, and what do you think the use is going to be later? So let's just talk about two examples, like an office building compared to a hospital. Those are two, you could not be more different, right? An office building is about, uses a lot less energy, a lot less water. In an office building, it's about making people productive and providing them a great place to work, and very easy ways to make an office building very energy efficient.
And it's a more flexible space, yeah.
Absolutely. A hospital, on the other hand, has a very specific use. It's about what the patient needs, how the nurses and doctors can be the most efficient. What's interesting is what we're finding is that hospital design is not that different where offices are going, because the same sort of things impact patients and workers in the hospital as they do the office workers. Everybody's looking for that access to natural daylight, good air quality. They're both trying to create healthy environments.
Is it hard to meet the LED standards?
LEED
standards?
LED
certified standards and the other standards, are those difficult to meet in building a building?
What building type? Offices, very easy to do. LEED now actually has its own classification for healthcare. Yeah.
Well, just to wrap up, what's missing? What's the piece that we don't have? We're hearing about all kinds of technologies. We're hearing about all kinds of, types of energy management. We're hearing about the people piece.
Yes.
Okay. What's missing?
I think what's still really missing, we're at a technology conference, and one of the things that we struggle with on the building industry side is that all of the different systems still have their own control panel and their own platform.
Oh, so there's no standardization.
It's not integrated. So like, for instance, within one building, you could have a separate control panel for your security system, your audiovisual system,
really?
Your fire alarm system, your HVAC system,
oh, that's
your day
crazy.
Lighting system,
and that's
your
whole,
lighting system.
Wiring crazy.
Exactly. So there's a lot of redundancy because we haven't figured out how to integrate all of these systems into one place.
Wow, that's a really good point. Great. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being a woman in the construction business.
I love it.
That. Yes, I'm sure you're a rose among thorns. I'm here with Whitney Dorne of DPR Construction.
It really is amazing how building engineering is changing, and I'm fascinated by this intersection of buildings having to last a long time and yet be flexible to respond to new systems. It's quite remarkable. Well, thank you, Whitney. I appreciate your time. And next up, we're going to talk about your computers. Have you ever thought about all the energy it takes to manufacture, sell, ship, and service computers? Not to mention the waste created by computers? Well, here's a factoid for you. According to a study done by Arizona State University and the Rochester Institute of Technology, quote, 70% of the energy a typical laptop will consume during its lifespan is used in manufacturing the computer, unquote. That's remarkable. 70% of the energy used in manufacturing. At the Verge conference, I spoke with Trissa Thompson, the Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility for Dell Computers. Computers use a lot of energy, especially if we leave them on when they are not in use, or if we have one that is not energy efficient. Let's listen to Trissa Thompson of Dell.
And welcome back to Sidebar. I'm Joan Michelson, Green Connections and Verge San Francisco 2020 with Trissa Thompson, VP of Corporate Responsibility of Dell. Trissa was announcing their new 2020 goals, which were just announced yesterday, and they're posted online in a variety of places. And this is really unique because, as most of you know, I'm sure, Dell just went private. And it was kind of in the news if you follow any of that stuff. And so the going private allows them, I think, to take a more longer view, because one of the frustrations, as any public company will tell you, is the markets are very short-term focused. And now Dell is able to take a longer view, which those of us in the sustainability space and the energy space really, really appreciate. So welcome to Sidebar, Trissa, and
Thanks
welcome
so
to Verge.
much, Joan.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about this. One is, a lot of your goals really revolve around, or I should say are dependent upon behavior. Somebody has to do something in order to achieve those goals.
Yes.
And inevitably, changing people's behavior is the hardest nut to crack. You know, whether you're talking about employees, whether you're talking about computer owners, whether you're talking about suppliers, you know, you can have only so many restrictions in there and for compliance, or incentives for compliance, depending upon whether it's a supplier or not. How do you do that? How do you change the behavior? And how, looking forward to these, I dare say, quite ambitious 2020 goals, how does Dell plan to actually change that behavior?
So if you look at our supply chain, actually we do the same thing internally and externally. So if you're looking at externally to our supply chain, you start with education. So we offer education seminars across the globe for our suppliers to really talk about labor issues, environmental issues, health and safety issues in a factory. So we start with the education, but we also put incentives in there. First of all, you can't even qualify to be a Dell supplier unless you meet certain standards in environmental and safety. So you have to pass that threshold first.
Another key issue for me, frankly, is women business owners. And you talk about in your plan that I have about diversity and how important that is, and how the supply chain is so important.
Sure.
But I really, frankly, saw diversity in the supply chain lumped together, if I may, in your report. So can you talk about, women women business owners are very focused on women in general are very focused on sustainability and energy efficiency issues. So, if you can talk a little bit about how many of your suppliers are women, percentage roughly, and how you go about getting them.
Yeah, so we do a lot. We think about women both internally as, how do we help our women internally, and we have a women's group that has 40 chapters, and it's 8,000 members in 40 different countries, or 79 different countries.
Wow. Mo, did you have a question for Trissa?
Well, Trissa, I'm curious about, you talked a little bit about BT and AT&T's net good goals, and you having a similar goal. What does that collaboration look like between the three companies, and also the sharing of the methodology? Because it's a new metric, trying to measure what net
it is.
positive
So
is.
Today there isn't a metric other than the idea. So we're starting with an idea, and we've actually had this week met with our competitors and met with other people in the industry, not all competitors, to start to have that conversation. And so BT came up with their own methodology, and they've put it out there to the public and said you can use it. We've looked at, Jesse has some methodology, Carbon War Room has talked about this with AT&T. So there's lots of different starting points today. But what we're trying to do is, how do we get everyone together to really come up with one set of standards? And that's where we think it needs to go. It's kind of like if you think of 802.11, the world kind of had to say, we're going to agree on the Wi-Fi protocol. Otherwise, you wouldn't work. Your computer would stop working in China.
Well, that's what's so interesting about this space and frankly, the Verge conferences in general is we're in an age where almost every industry and almost every aspect of every industry is indeed being disrupted by innovation and disruptive innovation, period. It's not, there's some incremental, but for the most part, it's huge shifts like you're talking about. Anyway, thank you so much, Tricia Thompson.
Thank you.
What kind of computer do you have? Tell us on our Facebook page. You can buy one with the Energy Star label, which means it meets more stringent guidelines for energy conservation. The Energy Star website also has some good information about computers and energy use as well. Go to EnergyStar.gov. Here's a tip from the Energy Star website. It seems that screensaver is a misnomer. The Energy Star website says that screensavers generally do not save energy. In fact, certain graphics-intensive screensavers can cause the computer to burn twice as much energy as it would otherwise. I guess their recommendation is don't use screensavers. If you're buying a new computer, how are you discarding your computer? Here's some tips. Before you discard your computer, make sure to take everything off of it before you let it out of your possession. It's a security issue. Even if you don't think you'll want the information or the photos or the documents or whatever's on there, please copy them. Copy everything off it and then sweep it clean. Don't know how to sweep it clean? Ask a computer specialist how to do this. You can find one at any computer store, Best Buy, Office Depot, or a small local IT business in your area. Donate the computer. If it's 5 years old or younger, donate it to a nonprofit or a school. You get a tax deduction and you're doing a good thing. Recycle it. Computers have lots of hazardous materials in them, including lead, mercury, and PCBs. And they have materials that can be retrieved for other uses, like copper and tin. At EnergyStar.gov, they recommend visiting Earth911.com. That's Earth911.com to find out where to recycle your electronics in your area. Check with your city and county, too, because Virginia, for example, where I live, it's the law to recycle electronics because of the hazardous materials. On the city or county's website, they'll also tell you where to recycle it. Coming up next, what do you drive? Stay tuned to listen to an executive at a top automaker talk about what's next in alternative fuel vehicles. And a storage expert will talk about that vexing storage issue that plagues so much of the alternative fuel car market, as well as other markets.
Capital Audio Post, your one-stop shop for your post-production needs. 703-712-8757.
Our services include video editing, sound design, sound mixing, ISDN recording, and many other media-related services.
Let us finish your project no matter where you are, across the U.S. or across the world. Go to www.capitalaudiopost.com. Call us at 703-712-8757.
Let us know how we can help you finish your production.